Welcome to the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or are in the process of overcoming a life topic. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture, along with my wife and business partner, Marty. The Cooper Culture is sponsoring this podcast series, the purpose of which is to let people know that they are not alone in whatever life topic they are experiencing, and that there is a solution to any topic that anyone is involved in, and we're in this together. Today we profile Patrick Clark, who is, he would probably say is still overcoming, but has largely overcome alcohol addiction. Marty, what are some of your takes of Patrick's podcast?
Sure, Ron. I really appreciate this podcast today. With Patrick talking about the different things going on in his life that he used alcohol to ease the pain. And I could think back over my own life and relate to some of those areas that Patrick went through. So I hope that the listeners, if you are going through one of the things, just one or maybe a couple of things that Patrick went through, listen to him and listen to his resolve and how he overcame.
Yes, our listeners will learn that I use the expression there were 12 to 15 different topics that were operative in Patrick's life. And at the time, there's not one dominant factor that led him into alcoholism, but each one of these 12 to 15 factors seemed to rotate toward the top of the list to become, at a particular moment in his life, an overpowering topic that led him into alcoholism. It wasn't until he was able to connect with a person who helped him fully analyze and reflect on his feeling of inadequacy, why it was that he felt inadequate, that over a period of 30 years he was in and out of alcoholism. Just an absolutely intriguing story. And either you may be able to identify with this, or perhaps there's someone in your life that is experiencing some of the attributes, some of the traits Patrick is describing. Just an absolutely intriguing podcast. I'm very interested in your thoughts as we all listen to Patrick and his story. So let's join in. Patrick, thank you so much for choosing to join with us today. I know that your story is going to benefit Marty and me and all of our listeners. We're intrigued with your past, and not to focus on the past, Patrick, but to learn from the past and how might we help others. So thank you for your willingness to participate and be very candid with us.
Thank you for having me.
Pat.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you.
Patrick, can you start out with just a very brief summary of your past, and as you can relate your past and how that may have contributed to what I think I'm learning is your maybe addiction or your, let's just say, dalliance, if that's an appropriate term, with alcohol?
Yep, sure can. So I'll just identify myself as an alcoholic. So my name's Patrick, and I am an alcoholic. And my past is one just of a normal childhood. I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia to an Irish American family. A lot of drinking in the family. Nothing crazy, no trauma occurred. Just a normal life, really. At an early age, I felt, we call it a spiritual malady in the Alcoholics Anonymous program. But at an early age, I felt an intense amount of fear in me, almost like there was a sense of lack, like something was different about me than other people. That stayed with me through my childhood. It stayed with me up until recently, actually. And I took my first drink at the age, I think, at 11. And when I took that first drink, that feeling, that overall feeling of fear of being less than or inadequate or inferior, that went away. And from that moment on, my entire life revolved around drinking, because what I was suffering from is called a spiritual malady, which is a disconnection, and that alcohol solved that. it was my solution to that. And then from that point on, my life really either revolved around alcoholism in one of two ways, either drinking or trying not to drink, right? So it was at the center, and I was kind of like on the outside, almost like on a merry-go-round, but at the center of that was alcohol. So I was in my first rehab at 16, my second rehab at 17. I had a couple years sober. I drank again for a few years. At 24, I got sober again. I stayed sober till the age of 35, so 11 years. 35, I drank again. I had a pretty long relapse, 11-year relapse, which I lost everything. So I wasn't homeless in the sense that I was on the street every single night. I've slept on the street many times, but I had family and friends that I would kind of sleep on their couch, or they would take me in, or at times I had an apartment. But pretty much that next 10 years was just an alcoholic oblivion, really is the best way to describe it. And then about 5 years ago, I decided to try and get sober again, put up my entire effort into it, and I got drunk again at 9 months sober. And so I was pretty hopeless at that point, because when you're in AA and you're in drug and alcohol rehab and you're failing that, where else do you go, right? Because everyone gets sent to AA to recover from alcoholism. But if you're in AA, because I had been in and out AA of that 10-year relapse period, but if you're in AA and you can't stop drinking, then what do you do? So I had a really hopeless, I was really hopeless inside. And I met a gentleman that was properly armed with the facts about alcoholism. And I was in or out of AA for over 30 years. And I hadn't learned what a true alcoholic was, or what a real alcoholic was. And when I met this man, we went through this process called the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, and something miraculous happened. I was freed of my alcoholism. And that brings me to today. And I still live as a free person from my alcoholism, and that's kind of the overall general path that we can probably dive into at a different couple of points, but that's a good starting off point for us, I think.
Well, Patrick, thank you for that very in-depth and very candid summary of your background. I'm very curious, Patrick. You suffered from, if I could use the word suffered, or you felt spiritually deprived, alienated. Is that another way of saying that you maybe had a low self-esteem, low self-confidence, and you weren't exactly sure where you fit in to friends and that kind of thing? Did I summarize that correctly?
You nailed it. So those are some of the traits of what I suffered from, right? It shows up a little bit differently from different people, but generally the overall overwhelming feeling will be one of fear, like an internal fear, like self-centered fear, right? So I'm always, my concern is always Patrick, and how everyone is a threat to Patrick, right? And how everyone is talking about Patrick, and how everyone doesn't like Patrick. And so I become consumed with me, right? And if I'm consumed with me, and I'm in a fear, and I have that sense of inadequacy, well, guess what? It's only a matter of time before that becomes too painful, and I need to get out of it somehow, right?
Okay, so Patrick, it sounds like there was a point in your life where you became, I'm going to use the term, you reckoned with that overpowering force of inadequacy, not knowing where you fit. Marty and I are outsiders in that we've never developed a taste for alcohol, but I'm guessing that whatever alcohol did for you in an earlier life, it was temporary, and you'd feel good for a while, you'd come out of it, and then the feelings of inadequacy would put you back into drinking. Is that the cycle in which you found yourself?
That's exactly it. You have a lot of insight into the disease. So what would happen is, so at an early age, I would start, and I didn't have an awareness of this is what was happening, right? So I didn't have the awareness of what I suffered from then that I do now, right? So I'm looking at this from almost like a recovered standpoint. I understand what was happening now, but then I didn't. So then, you're right, I would drink for a period of time. I was a binge drinker, so I would just drink as long as I possibly could until I ran out or something happened. And when I would finish up drinking, then I would go back to normal life, right? So I would go back to school or work or whatever it was. And after a period of time, that suffering that I was going through, which at the time I did not recognize as suffering, I just thought it was life, right? So that period of time that I would suffer would become too much for me, too intense, whatever you want to call it, and then I would need to drink again because my drinking relieved me of that, right? So it's the same thing as, so if you look at it, you're taking in the same parallel, maybe you start to get a toothache, you take some ibuprofen. It comes back 3 days later, you take some ibuprofen. It comes back 4 days later, you take some ibuprofen. After a period of time, that toothache gets worse and worse, and you need to take more medicine, right, for that toothache to not hurt as much. And then eventually you need to go to the dentist. You need to somehow relieve and get relief from that pain. That's what alcohol does for us. Alcohol is my dentist. When I go to alcohol, that suffering that I don't even know I'm suffering from, I just think it's life, that treats that condition.
Yes. Patrick, you're very articulate about what I call self-awareness. Help us, Patrick, those of us on the outside, if we were to see somebody that exhibited exactly what you're describing, we see, or let's say we perceive, and I want to preface what I'm about to ask you. I have no intention of labeling anybody, but if we see, based on your experience, someone else who has the traits that you are so articulately describing, could we maybe, or let me ask you, is it appropriate, based on your experience, for us to intervene with that person, that is, develop a genuine rapport, a friendship, and over a period of time help this person over these traits to help them avoid getting into alcoholism? Or would you say there's some people, perhaps you, Patrick, man, there's nothing that would have stopped you. You just had to experience what you did.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't know that there's a cut and dry answer to say, you could do this or that. What I can say is I can talk about my experience and my observations. So my experience has been that I probably needed to go through my alcoholism. Once I took a sip of alcohol, there was nothing that was going to prevent that continuing to happen. Right? It just wasn't, because it was a driving force in my life. That being said, this is what everyone's trying to do, right? Rehabs, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, everyone is trying to help people heal from maybe a perceived sense of lack, or perceived suffering that they're going through. If you look at just the pharma industry, look at all the medications that are prescribed to children, right? So I have that same type of condition in me, right? So I think that everyone's trying to do the same thing, which is to treat a perceived malady that a person may have, and it could show up as mental, it could show up as emotional, it could show up as a whole entity. Some people that have like a borderline personality disorder. At the core of all those is a disconnection. There's something inside of them that's causing this, right? And I believe that alcoholism is a call back to the self, back to finding who your true self is. Any manner at any age that somebody is helping you to suffer less from the condition you're in, and it doesn't matter if it's alcoholism or what it is, I think is useful. Because people, when they suffer too greatly, they overdose, they commit suicide, or they harm others. And so any of those interventions in between is helpful, because it's helping somebody to relieve some of their suffering. Of course, ultimately, what we're trying to do is help them fully recover. And we have a path in Alcoholics Anonymous to do that. There's not a path everywhere for everybody else, but in my experience, I think it's been useful. If I wasn't in rehab at the age of 16 and 17, I don't know where I would have been by the age of 21, because it did put temporary halts in my alcoholism.
Great. Marty?
I want to go back to a statement that you made. You said you were different. Did you feel you were different, or what triggered your thought that you are different? Because there are a lot of kids nowadays that go, I'm different, I don't have friends, I don't know why, but I know I'm different. But I don't know why I'm different.
Yeah. Yeah, there's without analyzing my childhood, the reason I prefaced that I didn't have any trauma is because I haven't had any trauma, and usually you'll see those types of feelings within children when they have trauma happening, but I didn't have that. I did come from a divorced father and mother, and there was they were loving. There was never any abuse or anything like that. But I think what happens is there's a point in time when we're children in that we feel really safe. And if there's an instance or an experience that happens in which you lose your sense of safety, it happens to almost everybody. Almost everybody has an underlying condition of they lost safety as a child. Not everyone's progresses in the way that mine did, right? Some people become CEOs of companies. Some people go to mass. Some people do yoga and they meditate. Some people play sports. Everyone has their different outlets. The sense of overall fear that I felt, I don't think there was a specific instance that it occurred, but it was an overall sense of who I was, and that overall sense of who I was fear-based. So I had this sense of who I was basically everything was a threat to me, right? I was constantly in fear of what people thought of me. If I was going to be yelled at, people's judgment's a big one, right? That's why public speaking is the number one fear for everybody. Why is that? Because people are afraid of being judged, right? So I don't think there was an actual instance, but there was an overall sense.
Sure. Patrick, I know what happens to a lot of people. They have this sense of fear. They're not willing or they don't feel safe to articulate what they're feeling. I do think it's incumbent on us, call us outsiders, to be aware of some of the things that you are so graciously articulating. In your case, it could have been, who knows, 12, 15, a collection of 12 to 15 little things that all came together that culminated in your situation. But if we are aware of some of the things that you're describing, and we on the outside are very aware of not labeling and accusing, but rather we want to help, my hope is we will be able to assimilate everything you're saying to a very useful end. Does that seem like a potential approach?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's a really good point. Anybody that's suffering from a lack of fear or suffering from a lack of connectedness, and by connectedness I mean I feel that I'm connected to you, that you and I are both human beings, and we are on level with each other. You're not better than, I'm not less than, I'm not better than, you're not less than. Anybody that doesn't have that sense of connectedness, that is going to manifest itself in different behaviors. Right, so there are certainly things to look out for. Of course, drug abuse and alcohol abuse is one of them. Isolation from others is another one. Violence or acting out of emotion, extreme emotion. So if I am yelling a lot, if I'm throwing things a lot, that means I'm internally frustrated. Right, frustration is just the bottom rung of anger. So if I'm experiencing those types of frustrations, right, those are definitely trigger points to look for, and perhaps look to for some type of an intervention. When I say intervention, I don't mean intervention in the sense that you saw on TV. I just mean some type of help when I talk about that type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the things Marty and I emphasize, Patrick, and again, you're very articulate, a connected relationship, that we're genuine, we want to relate to you, we accept you, and so forth. Talk to us a little bit about, Patrick, it sounds as if you were, 20-plus years maybe, in and out of alcohol, and I'm curious, was there maybe in the last 5 or 6 years that you felt that, no, you accept yourself, you have a connected relationship, and so forth, that, hey, I no longer need to rely on drugs? Is that somewhat the process you went through?
Yeah, it is. So there's 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, and everyone knows it's a 12-step program, but there's a lot of misperception about it. The 12 steps are an actual process to treat alcoholism. And if you go through these 12 things, you take action. We call it spirituality through action. If you take action through these 12 things, you will be freed of your alcoholism. Now, I'm going to take a step back and just talk about the spiritual malady and what alcoholism is from an Alcoholics Anonymous perspective. So the spiritual malady is just simply a sense of disconnectedness with yourself, right? And that means that you're identified with your mind. So ego is a term that you hear all the time today, particularly in you just hear it everywhere in Buddhism and different contemplative paths. And so what I'm really referring to is an identification with ego, right? An identification with your mind. If you have an identification with your mind and you believe that you are your mind, and your mind is fear-based, your conditioning is fear-based, guess what? You're going to live in a lot of fear, right? You're going to be identified with whatever thought is coming through your mind, and when you're identified with every thought that's coming through your mind, you're going to suffer because there's no sense of freedom. You're trapped in your mind. What the Alcoholics Anonymous program does with the 12 steps is it breaks that identification. Once that identification is broken, there's what's called as a spiritual awakening. I'm trying to simplify this because it's not a crazy process. It's a really simple process. The spiritual awakening is just simply I'm not my mind, and there's a different sense of spirit in you that starts to show. That's what happened with me. When that happened, I was writing inventory one day, and I clearly saw a distinction that what was happening in my life was not what people were doing to me. It was my reaction to them. And I knew, I looked down at the sheet of paper, and I was like, oh, my God, it was me. They're not doing anything. This is my reaction. And that was the beginning of the spiritual awakening through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so what happened ultimately was I started to connect to myself, which is a deeper sense of being. It's not a fear-based sense. I've let go of some of that. Now it's a practice. It's something I have to do every day, but I've been freed in that manner. I'm not sure if that answers the question. I hope it gets close.
Patrick, to the listener who may be right now where you have been, they may be wondering, well, what was it that brought about this? I'm going to use the word transformation of the mind.
Yep.
I'm thinking or wondering, Patrick, did you change your reading habits? Did you change your watching, listening habits? Did you change your friends? Or was this just an internal spiritual awakening, if I could use that term?
Yes, you're right along the right lines. We call it a psychic change and a spiritual awakening. So what actually happened, if I could take a step back, I couldn't stop drinking. Right, I was unable to stop drinking, and the crazy thing was I wasn't sure why I kept drinking. I didn't even know how I drank. Like I would wake up on a Monday and I would swear to God with everything in me I was never going to touch a drink again, ever. And I meant it. I meant it with everything in me. And by 2 o'clock I was sitting in a bar, and I didn't know how that happened. So I was bewildered and baffled a lot. Like I honestly had no idea why I kept drinking, but it kept happening over and over. And then I met a man who was talking about the same experience that I had, right? So I knew he had walked the path that I walked. And there was an instant, there was almost like a key opened the door a little bit. It was like, and I was like, oh my God, he knows. And when that happened, I was out of my ideas. Like the way that I was trying to keep myself sober was going to the ton of just doing different things to try and keep myself sober, never working. And I was completely open and willing to follow his path. What he took me down was a path of the steps. So we started working immediately and going through this book. It's called the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's just a blue book. It's just with a bunch of spiritual steps in it. And we started doing this, and we met every week. And every week I would do whatever assignment he gave me. And something started to happen through that process. I started to get free of the stuff that I was suffering from, which I call alcoholism. Full of fear, unable to maintain relationships, don't feel like my life is useful, those types of things. And then that path just continued on.
Patrick, I'm curious. What I'm discerning from this is you connected with a friend, a person, a gentleman, who you felt genuinely connected to. Here's what I'm going to just see if you can even project this. It sounds as if it's possible someone else with whom you did not feel that same connectedness could have had the book, and you may not have ingratiated yourself into the book and so forth, but it was the connectedness that helped you, let's say, be the chain breaker, if I could use that term, to try something new, and that's what, and you felt connected. I'm going to keep going back to the word connected. That's what I'm sensing from you. Am I assimilating this correctly?
That's the operative word. So the sense of disconnection that I felt my entire life is no longer there, and I feel connected to myself, to other human beings, and to what's happening in this world. The part where you're talking about being connected with him, his message had depth and weight with me. So the last time I drank, I went back to an AA meeting the very next morning, and I love Alcoholics Anonymous, just so you're aware. And there's different types of people in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Some people are problem drinkers, are not truly alcoholics, and there's other people that are real alcoholics that cannot stop drinking whatsoever. The last time I drank, I had gone back into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I said I drank again, and I don't know what to do. I'm hopeless. And a gentleman came up to me after the meeting, and he said, you must have wanted to drink more than you wanted to stay sober. Almost like I didn't try hard enough, right? That's what that sounds like. It sounds like you didn't put enough into it. You didn't make a strong enough decision. That's not what happened the last time I drank. The last time I drank, I was contemplating I needed to drink to treat the condition I was in. I was crying before I ran into the bar, right, because I was in so much internal pain, and I didn't know how to treat it other than through alcohol. And when I met the guy that took me through the steps, he had a message of depth and weight. In other words, he was describing the condition that I was in. Except for him, it was a past condition. And for me, it was a current condition. And immediately I knew, this guy knows. And then at that point, I went up to him after I met him, and I said, would you please help me? I cannot stop drinking. And he said, yes, would you be willing to meet Friday? And I said, I will meet you wherever you want to meet, whenever you want to meet. I am complete. And I just did everything that man put in front of me. And within 60 days, I was relieved of my alcoholism. 30 years prior, I was in and out of it constantly, and I was always in the spirit, always in that sense of disconnectedness. Right.
Patrick, I'm curious. Man, you've gone through a lot, and I sense that you are a person of resolve, and you have reckoned with yourself. You know who you are in a very positive way.
Thank you.
Can you engage in social drinking and not be concerned about returning to the way things were? Have you reckoned with yourself and just say, nope, I can be around others who are drinking, but I cannot drink? I'm curious how your past has affected your present.
Yep. So I think there's two parts to that. So as far as social drinking for me personally, we've identified, and this is through Alcoholics Anonymous, we've identified one common trait that all alcoholics have, and that is what we call an allergy to alcohol. When I put alcohol in me, in any matter, duels, whatever, doesn't matter what it is. If it's alcohol going in me, I develop what is called an intense craving for more alcohol immediately, and it becomes at the forefront of my mind. That's why you'll see people go to extreme lengths to continue to put a substance in them. Right, they'll break in it. You'll see them cash in their entire paycheck, their 401k. They'll break into cars. They'll rob banks. They'll rob bars. Right, because they've internally, physically, they have an intense craving for more alcohol. It almost feels like you're crawling out of your skin if you don't have it. So that's one definition of an alcoholic for me. So I've come to the deep realization that I am unable to drink alcohol anymore, and that's okay. The other part, I think, to the second part to your question was, can I be in a social setting with other people that are drinking? I can. I don't recommend it for people that are in early recovery until they've fully recovered. And I've recovered from the disease. That just means I no longer display the symptoms, right? So I don't have a mind that takes me back to alcohol. I don't put alcohol in me, so I don't have a physical allergy. And I don't suffer from the sense of disconnection, which is what's ultimately causing me to go drink. So I'm able to go into social settings. I don't hang out in bars just because it's not really a place that excites me anymore. I used to love them, but I don't go there anymore. But I have no problem going to any social setting in which there is alcohol served. I don't hang out in there just because it's not enticing to me. But I can go anywhere I want. Yep.
Okay, but you have made the very definite choice of based on who you are, where you've been, and I sense a very definite resolve in your voice, Patrick. Do I understand correctly, Patrick, you are serving on the staff of Recovery Centers of America?
Yes, I'm a technology project manager. I've been there since the beginning, and I worked with Katie and Bill. I helped open up the call center, and I took calls starting there. And right at that time, I was actually back starting to repair my life again from that long relapse. So yeah, I work for Recovery Centers of America, and that provides me another avenue to help alcoholics and drug addicts. Yep.
Patrick, oh gosh, your story is absolutely intriguing. I just love the resolve in your voice,
Thank you.
And I have the sense that as you are talking with others, you too can help them overcome whatever it is they're going through. It may take a while, but I just sense a resolve in your voice that you will take the time to develop a connected relationship. I want to thank you on behalf of our listeners that letting us know just how we can identify some of the traits. Again, I will emphasize frequently, we're not trying to label anybody,
Yep.
But if we can identify a trait, develop a very connected relationship, it's possible that neither Marty or I is the best person, but we may, because we know Patrick, we may say, I really think you can benefit from talking to Patrick. Marty and I feel that we are functioning as a catalyst to help connect people, develop connected relationships. My sense, Patrick, and I think you've confirmed this, that as we put all this together, we can help a lot of people overcome their addictions, their disease, and it's very Pollyannic perhaps to think this, but there's a possibility we could put Recovery Centers of America out of business if we're able to connect with enough people.
You nailed it again, Ron. I want to thank you for providing me the avenue to tell my story and maybe a little glimmer of hope for anyone listening. And I agree with you. If we can put RCA out of business because everyone's recovered, that would make me happier than anyone in the world. You have my email address, and if anyone reaches out to you and they just wanted to talk, please put them in contact with me. I will always be available.
Patrick, thank you so much. And yes, we will definitely put people in contact with you. You just have a phenomenal story, and thank you for your very resolved story.
Thank you
Patrick,
so much,
Patrick,
Marty.
I want to thank you also. This has been very enlightening, and I want it to reach a lot of people that are going through this, and just to help wherever we can. So thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Marty. Thank you so much, Ron. Together, I think we're making progress for sure. So thank you so much, and bless you guys.
We absolutely are, and Marty and I approach all of this as one relationship at a time, and I do believe with persistence we will overcome.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll talk again, I'm sure.
Thank you, Patrick.
Take care. All right.
Did Patrick's testimony possibly cause you to reflect on your life, or if not yours, perhaps someone in your circle of influence? He was very reflective, and it took him nearly 30 years to analyze what it was that was the source of his feeling of inadequacy. We hope you get benefit and value from Patrick and the other podcasts of the Overcomers Overcoming series. We hope you'll consider giving us a 5-star rating and subscribing to this series. Again, our purpose is to help others through any challenges they may be experiencing in life, and help those know with a resolve, as Patrick had a resolve, that we are in this together. That whatever you're experiencing, know there are multiple solutions, and there are multiple people who have been through and are willing to establish that connected relationship. Marty and I have developed a digital course on relationships, and it is a dating relationship. We are in the process of developing a similar course on workplace relationships, but it has to do with developing a connected relationship. How can you know if the person you are dating or you would like to get to know better is a potential lifetime mate? There are ways that we can help you increase the probability that that person is right. And how can we help others develop a connected relationships? There are attributes of connected relationships, and we want to help others to know just what they are. Call us or contact us through our website to let us know your potential interest in this digital course, and we want to make that available to you. Also, we hope that you find value in these podcast series. Engage with us, and either through email, call us at 410-586-1875. Let us know your thoughts. We are deeply passionate about effectively interacting with others to let them know that we can come together, we can unify in actual harmony to work with each others to help to let each other know that they're not in this alone. There are multiple solutions to anything you're going through. Marty and I are not psychotherapists, and we are not trained in that, but we are trained as personal performance coaches to help people reach their full potential. As Patrick very clearly stated, he was not operating at his full potential when he was continuously having the feelings of inadequacy. When he found a person who was able to connect with him, he was able to reckon, I use that term, with his past and overcome those feelings to where now he is a more productive person, living up to his potential, and he's passing forward his experience to others and adding value to everyone with whom he comes in contact. If you can identify with Patrick and you'd like to contact him, contact us and we'll get you in contact with Patrick. I am Ron at thecooperculture.com. Marty is at Marty at thecooperculture.com. But let's interact with each other. Let's engage and let's come together and do some forward thinking. I call it forward leaning frequently, to determine how we can reach out to others and be a value add to those who might just need to know that there are others who are willing to effectively engage and connect with him. We look forward to interacting with you and look forward to just advancing our thinking together.